And welcome to the Metapod Podcast, the Pokemon podcast that revolves around the evolving meta. Back again. Apologies for the no episode last week. That's on me. I wasn't feeling like super great, but we're back. We're back now. So Sean, first, how are you doing?
I'm good. I think last week's week off also, there just wasn't a lot to talk about.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot, and then after we decided to take off, there became a lot to talk.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know what I've realized, Jake? I think Tuesday is Pokemon's announcement day.
I
So,
think we've been saying this for
yeah,
like at
years.
least like at least 2 years now.
So, yeah, if you ever want to know when big announcements from Pokemon are going to come out, it'll almost always be on a Tuesday, which is, after we've recorded by one day, which is great.
As we record on Monday. But don't worry, no matter what day those events and regulations come out, we'll give you the details on the next episode's podcast, or on the next podcast episode. That's what I meant to say. But anyways, Sean, did you happen to catch Portland or anything like that since we last talked?
No, I didn't watch any of the regional. I do know though that John Ang won with
Mm-hmm.
the Giratina V-Star in a mirror match. So that deck is really, strong right now. I think it's really between that one, Charizard EX, and maybe there's a third in there that I'm not remembering off the top of my head. I mean, Mew is always good, but like if Charizard is like everywhere, then Mew is going to have a harder time.
I think it's probably somewhere between like Mew, Gardevoir, and like Lost Box kind of style
Yeah,
decks,
in
in my
the next
opinion.
tier down, yeah. So,
Hmm.
but yeah,
Congratulations to John Ang, though. First regional championship. I know he's been a pretty good player for a while, so that was pretty cool to see. So there was also this really cool thing that happened over the last 24 hours, at least since we recorded, over this past weekend, where after Portland regionals, Jake Gearhart and Isaiah Bradner had this, like, I don't want to say beef because it wasn't really beef, but like this debate on Twitter about the Gardevoir and Giratina matchup, because I think Jake was like, "Oh my gosh, how'd you all let a mirror match of Giratina V-Star hit the finals? You know, like Gardevoir 75-25 wins it," and then Isaiah Bradner was like, "No, it's at least 50-50." So they ended up having a money match. They like both bet $100 or something like that, so winner gets 200. But Azul GG streamed it, and we wouldn't usually talk about this, I feel like, but it was so cool because Azul, I think he had peak viewership of 1900 on his like Twitch stream and stuff, which, let me tell you, Sean, that's the same amount of people that watch an official Play Pokemon regional for just a goofy best of 9, $300 money match. And so he mentioned that he's going to be doing more in the future. And I think Conquest was in there. Sean, you and I have both done like Conquest for content at one point or another. Basically, for anyone who doesn't know, a Conquest is like you pick 5 decks. Just as an example, you pick 5 different decks and you play until you win, and the first person to run out of decks wins the contest or conquest, basically.
yeah. It's a really fun, like, if you have enough decks. It's also like largely it's a content creator thing, but I don't know. It's fun to watch because you get to see a lot of different decks. It's hard to complain about like bad matchups because you're picking 5 decks, right? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's fun. I think we
I
did it
think
a long time ago.
I think I did it in either 2019 or 2020. I can't remember exactly which one, but I remember doing it with Shay, one of our former podcast hosts, by the way, and now Play Pokemon official commentator, Shay Burton, Hot Chocolate PTCG. Back then, he was the Slowpoke well.
Well, I think now I don't know if now he's like Bursts PTCG or Burt's PTCG.
Either way, he's a
Yeah,
great guy. You
but
can
still.
find him on the streams, but um, I remember I did it with him, but it was funnier because, or no, we had a challenge. I think you and I were both in this where we had to build a deck that revolved around Sabrina's suggestion,
Yes, yes.
and I won.
Yeah, yeah, you did.
Yeah. Sabrina's suggestion from Team Up. I don't even remember what that card does.
So you look at your opponent's hand and you play a supporter
Mhm.
card from their hand. So it's a supporter to play a supporter from your opponent's hand.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, yes.
How did we win?
Well, it was one of those. I think it was the first one to win a game using that as your only supporter. I think it was like
Yeah.
some weird rules, but like, yeah, like there's wild cards like that where in a world where like I think in Sabrina suggested it's actually really good in a mirror match if
Oh, yeah.
Palpad didn't exist. Because if you
Mhm.
like if everybody's using the same supporters and you can only put 4 supporters in, but you want more, I'll just throw in some Sabrina suggestion. If you know your opponent has the supporter that you probably want to play, just do that. It's like
Just
having
do
extras.
that and get it out of there, but you may choose a supporter card you find there. So, if you're in the mirror match, if you're in the challenge mirror match, if we just queued up on ladder, nothing would happen.
Well, yeah, if
It,
it
there
was
would
only
technically be this
Sabrina's.
like
Yeah.
there would technically be this like infinite loop
Yeah, I assume
almost.
it would be like, you can't your opponent's not playing Sabrina, so the Sabrina doesn't do anything. I don't
Mhm.
even know if you could I guess you could play it, but it would just have no effect. But
I
yeah.
guess it would I guess it would continuously go. If I had to guess on a ruling, I'm not an official judge, so take this with a grain of salt. I guess it would go until one person runs out of Sabrina's suggestion because it's like you play, or is it you
No,
play the
no. You
effect?
play the
I just
effect. You
had it
don't play
pulled
the
up.
card
Oh yeah, so it's an infinite loop then. And so
in theory.
therefore nothing would happen because Pokemon doesn't allow infinite loops
Yes.
in the
So
game. But some things are not infinite in the Pokemon trading card game, Sean, because cards rotate out of the standard format. Yeah, that's right. I'm forcing us to transition into
that was
the
the let's
conversation.
turn that bus around. Like
Yeah, that was a real 360. But, anyways, TPCI announced that all cards with the Regulation E mark. So, if you're not sure exactly what that is, Pokemon cards at the bottom left corner next to like the set symbol or whatever, they have this like letter in this white box circle thing. And so all the cards that are um, regulation F and beyond, they'll be here to stay, but all the cards from E
are
will
rotating.
be pushed out, but not all of the cards. It looks. Is it all the cards? Wait a minute. Oh, no, no, no. Only cards with an F, regulation
Yeah.
F mark. It's weird because Pokebeach on their website has Path to the Peak in the good column.
Well, it's not a good column. If you scroll down, it says goodbye to
Yeah,
you, good riddance to you. So
it
it's
it,
yeah,
it
it
tricked me.
the cutoff
I was
on
like
some of these
second guessing
screens.
myself. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you were like, wait, what's up? But yeah, all the regulation mark E cards are rotating. We knew
Mhm.
this. I think we probably talked about it before. Like,
Well, we've speculated
yeah,
it. It's been pretty good assumption.
yeah. And I think the only thing that was in question was like, in my opinion, was like when it might happen. Like, oh, was it
Mhm.
gonna happen? But I think April 5th, that's when temporal forces becomes legal. Pokemon has had a habit of rotating one set just as another set becomes legal.
Mhm.
So, and that also, I believe, will be the weekend of EUIC. So, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's the weekend of EUIC. So, EUIC
Mhm.
should be the first post rotation tournament, which will also include a new set. Um, so yeah, it's going to be a big rotation though. Like as you can see on the screen for those viewers, but for those listeners, like Escape Rope is rotating again. I say again
Mhm.
because it rotated a few years ago and then came back. But that will be one card that we will lose access to. So that will be, I think, a definite challenge for some decks. Path to the Peak is rotating, and that's huge.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's definitely one where, like, okay, that I think opens a lot of doors, I think, for a lot of decks that don't really stand a chance as long as that's in format. I even think about, Mousehold EX. Can't remember exactly what it does, honestly, but it has an ability that only I think it only works on your opponent's turn. Like, it only matters on your opponent's turn.
Hmm.
But the the problem with it was, if your opponent plays one Path to the Peak, the whole ability is just dead. And so it just felt like a deck that never could act, like, work properly as long as this card existed in format. So there are other things that turn, you know, abilities off, but they usually require a Pokemon to be in the active,
Hmm.
or they only target Pokemon V basics, for Spiritomb, for instance. So I think this will open up a lot of doors. Path to the Peak rotating.
Hmm. Level ball also rotates in battle styles. We've officially come full circle, Sean.
Yep.
I think this is the first card that we've, or at least that I remember, that we've come like full circle on, because we predicted level ball coming back and being reprinted, and we were correct, and now it's gone. So
Yep.
that's going to be another big hit one too, especially to like the, stage 2 decks, things like that, because level ball is so important. Things like fog crystal as well are going away in there. We're gonna have to figure out what card we want to burn.
In terms, oh yeah,
Yeah,
I have some thoughts. Leave us. It's a few months until this happens still,
hmm,
so we got some time. But,
we got time to plan.
send us messages if you have a preference for a card that needs to be burned. I have a couple of thoughts, but I can tell you right now, it's not Path to the Peak. As
Mm,
much as I
I'm
sometimes dislike that card, I think it's a good card for the format in a lot of instances. So,
I d- I do too. As much as I rag on it, I
yeah,
do agree that I think a card like Path to the Peak is good, especially because we had stuff like Lost Vacuum and Worker, in the format. It's a pretty decently fair card.
yeah.
Um, I hope we burn Battle VIP.
I mean, it's funny. We're not going to get into like too many new cards until the set is closer to release, but
Hmm.
we did get Battle VIP Pass at Home announced in the new set.
No, we got better than Battle VIP Pass.
Well,
It's better because you can play
it's
it whenever. It's not
that's
just turn one.
it's an upside in that respect, but it's a downside that it limits you to only 70 HP Pokemon or less.
That's fine.
So, for as long as there are larger basics, then
Hmm.
like, all the Vs don't benefit from that card, which is a big difference. Because Battle VIP Pass, if you're running any sort of Pokemon V, it's still that's they still exist, and you won't be able to get much value out of that. You won't be able to get a Squawkabilly with a Battle
Hmm.
VIP Pass, with the new Battle VIP Pass. So, it does matter a little, just a little.
It'll be interesting to see where time goes in the Pokemon trading card game, but we do know that in the future there's some more new cards coming out, some more ace specs. Sean and Jake's favorite topic to research in the Pokemon trading card game. So two more ace specs got revealed. I'll talk about the first one first, because I think the second one is one that we really, really need to talk about. The Drum of Awakening item card, A-Spec. Remember, A-Specs are a specific type of card similar to Radiant, where you can only have one in your deck. You can only have one A-Spec card in your deck. This one says draw a card for each of your ancient Pokemon in play. So you can draw up to 6 cards just with this item card. So pretty cool, I feel like, for ancient.
Yeah, I mean, look, Roaring Moon is a deck. It's
Hmm.
decent. It's not amazing, but it's decent. And when you're playing a Roaring Moon deck, I think you're usually going to end up with maybe four. You might have like three or four, maybe more ancient Pokemon, especially with some of the new stuff that might come out. So, an item card that basically just says draw four, draw five. You pair something like this with Arven,
Hmm.
and you can Arven for, let's say, whether that's Forest
For Seal
Sealstone,
Stone.
right?
Yeah.
You could Arven for Forest, or you could Arven if you're playing an ancient deck and you really want that ancient booster capsule. You can grab the
hmm
ancient booster capsule and still get to draw yourself 4, 5, maybe 6 cards. So,
On on top of that, it has the flexibility of working well with cards like Professor Sada's Vitality. Is that what it's called?
yep.
Where you can accelerate energy, draw cards, and also draw cards with this item card. So could be pretty nice. But I feel like you're not really gonna play it in an ancient deck unless you're like specific hard focused
Yeah.
on an ancient deck. Not necessarily because um I don't feel like the Roaring Moon decks would play this simply because like they just really only play Roaring Moon at this point. People aren't playing the Brute Bonnet.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like I don't we haven't gone through all the new cards in Ancients,
hmm
but currently it is a little iffy as to whether or not you would play this. And I think the Roaring Moon deck, the style of the deck is go second and start
hmm
taking as many prizes as quickly as possible. And the Prime Catcher or whatever the Ace Spec Catcher card,
hmm
that is probably going to be the preferred option in those decks because hey, like if the Pokemon in front of me is a single prizer and there's a juicy two prizer on the bench I can hit for 220, well, I'd like to do that, please. So
And we've talked about how Prime Catcher is a wildly better card than most of the other ace specs, and it's like, why would you play anything else? But I think, Sean, that this next one kind of competes with that. Q in Reboot Bot Trainer Item Future Ace Spec card. For each of your future Pokemon in play, choose one basic energy from your discard pile and attach it to that Pokemon. That's crazy.
yeah, um, I mean you basically it has the potential to accelerate 6 energy
hmm
onto the field now, and it only gets one per Pokemon. So this is again where I don't know. I assume you would want to run this with maybe Energy Switch. You know,
I'm trying to look to see if Energy Switch stays in format.
it's a good question.
It's I think it's a G.
Okay, then we're good.
So it's for a long time, yeah.
So like you probably would run this with an Energy Switch or two in the deck, unless there's again a future Pokemon that cares about the number of energy in play. That might be in the new set or in a future set. That's something they're planning for. But I think the biggest thing with this is Iron Hands,
hmm
right? Because Iron Hands, you look at its attack costs, and you just sat there like, well, that's a lot of work, and you do have Electric Generator, which is good, but it's a gamble. You don't always get there. But with Iron Hands in this card now, you can attach for turn, play this card to get another energy onto it of any kind. As long as your attachment is lightning, it doesn't really matter. But you could attach a double turbo, I guess is the thing that matters. Use this to hit one energy, and then if you Electric Generator, all you need to do is hit one. Or get an energy switch from another Iron Hands or something like that. So I think this one does open the door quite a bit for Iron Hands to be even more oppressive. And I will preview the fact that there is another future Pokemon, Jake. Did you see this? That adds 20 damage to your future Pokemon's attacks. And it's a basic.
Oh, I
And
think I did. Yeah,
and
because I saw the memes of like Plasma Lugia being reprinted.
yeah, so this one adds 20 to your future Pokemon's attacks,
hmm
and you can stack them. So you can put 4 of them in play, add 80 damage. Future Booster Capsule adds another 20. You're adding 100 damage. Um,
Yeah, it's
so
the Cobalion or whatever.
yes,
Um, I don't know the actual name. I'm looking at the Japanese
yeah.
version.
So I think that is. I don't know if that deck will be good, bad. Who knows if that's the right way to play Iron Hands, but it does set up a potential problem where, like, we weren't that overreacting on Iron Hands. Like, oh, 120, but if you have a double turbo, it's only 100. It's annoying
hmm
for single prizers, but if you can start knocking out two prizers with Iron Hands' second attack, if you add 100 damage and you don't have a double turbo on there and it's just a straight, you can smack for 220. Well, 220 knocks out basically every V. It knocks out your Squawkabillies, right? It knocks out your Mew EXs. All of a sudden, you're sat there like, is this ADP all over again? Is this a
Hmm.
problem? So
It'll be curious to see where it goes. I do know that that's once we talk about it, is also pretty heavy on the control aspects. So
hmm,
I'm excited about that. Did you see those cards?
no, I did not.
Ooh, I can't wait to tell you all about them. I can't wait. I can't wait,
But
Sean.
but Jake, overall, now we've seen I think it's 6 of the 7 A
Hmm.
Specs card that are going to be in our set. It's 7 confirmed. We know that there's going to be 7 of them. The Master Ball comes in a starter deck in Japan, and then there's going to be 3 for each of the sets in Japan. So we're missing
Hmm.
one. Right now, Jake, do you feel like the Prime Catcher is it's I think it's still the best in terms of broadest use, but do you feel like it is so far and away that the rest shouldn't even exist?
I don't necessarily think that. I found it really interesting that they made specific, like, future and ancient A-Spec cards. Like, I feel like the overall Prime Catcher, I think, is the best one because it is unlimited to whichever deck wants to
Yeah.
play it and whichever deck wants to build it. And it's completely viable in decks that have like Pokemon Searchers to start or run through, or like Iron Valiants, things like that. But I think it's interesting because I think Reboot bought the accelerant of future energies to Pokemon, or future Pokemon accelerating energies. um, I think that card is pretty good in itself. I think that card is very, very good. It's just only exclusive to future Pokemon decks. So it's a little bit of a weird question to ask. I do think at least for future decks, you do need to make a decision.
Yeah.
Like that can be a tough one, but unless you like so aggressively need to search for Pokemon, right? I don't know if Master Ball is it. But I
Right.
do know that Master Ball pairs well with something like Arven. Well, most of these items do, but with
Yeah.
Arven, what the point I was trying to make is like Arven can just help you out in general, like build your board state, especially because we've seen Arven a ton in these like stage 2 decks, right? So it could, like, I could see Master Ball being so incredibly niche, but it would only be like select decks that so severely need the support. Like it wouldn't surprise me to see something like Gardevoir play Master Ball, simply because you always want to find your Ralts and your Curlias and Gardevoirs and stuff like that, and that just makes it a little bit easier because you lose Level Ball and Battle VIP Pass.
Yeah. No, it's definitely it'll be interesting. I think that I'll be interested to see what this last one that they're holding out on is. I
Hmm.
don't think there'll be another future ancient type because like
No.
one of each makes sense. You have one that makes Pokemon bigger, you've got one that searches for Pokemon, you got one that gusts Pokemon, and then what's the last one? I can't even remember what the last one. You got the cape.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
That must not be a good sign. Oh, it's the energy, the double energy.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. For stage 2 Pokemon,
mm-hmm.
I think it was. Yeah, yeah. Is it three? Three rainbow? It's either
Two,
2 or 3.
two for stage 2.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a part of me, Jake, that I'm gonna make a last little prediction here. I think we might get a tool card as the last one because we have an energy
I was
and we have items. Maybe a stadium. Who knows?
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think Tool Card is bad, and I'd be curious too, because well, actually maybe not. I was gonna say like whoever the poster child is for the set, like the Pokemon that's the poster child, but now that Japan is like split between 2 sets
Yeah.
per set release, that actually wouldn't make sense because they have 2 poster childs. because we saw in the last A-Spec one when we went over every single A-Spec that there were specifically some as tool cards for specific Pokemon like Victini EX,
Yeah.
Genesect, um, stuff like that. So I was like, oh, it could be like for a specific Pokemon and it's probably going to be the poster child, but now that doesn't make sense in my head. So I do think it could be a tool card. Um, I just don't know what it could be though.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the only one that I could see being a poster child of sorts is like you could say like maybe Maridon or Coridon gets a cool tool
hmm
card because they have printed a few of them now, and it would work on a both the EXs and the basics potentially.
I'm
So
curious if they reprint Life Do.
that would be, yeah. I think I'd be open to another reprint of sorts. That would be cool. But yeah,
Life Do, a very cool card, did have some niche play. I feel like for anyone who doesn't know what it is, if the Pokemon this card is attached to is knocked out, your opponent takes one fewer prize card. And with the aggression into like control mill type stuff that's in the set, that again, that we'll talk about in the future, I guess it wouldn't surprise me if it turned into Life Do. But I don't know if that'd be too many cards for Pokemon based around like control stall.
I don't know. It's I'll be interested to see what they end up doing. I think that I would like them to print something that also makes it a choice. Well, I guess you still can have Forest Seal Stone and whatever this
hmm
tool card is. So maybe it shouldn't be a tool card. I don't know, but yeah. But anyways, Jake, uh, that's that. The rest of our
hmm
pod today, we have been long overdue to talk about this, but
We've talked about it on and off,
I don't know.
I think.
We haven't gone into detail, and that's today's
hmm
pod. Is the second half is going to be all about gym leader challenge. Jake has played some gym leader challenge. I have not, but um, what we're going to do today is just give you an overview of what the format is, what we think is good about it, what we enjoy, and then talk a little bit about like some of the cards and briefly cover on kind of some of the decks. We're not going
hmm
to go into detail because we'd be here for hours. But yeah, Jake, you've played GLC. Do you want to kick us off with like giving an overview? I'll pull up on the screen as well for the watchers.
So GLC, if you do want to get into it, I'll include in the show notes this website that Sean has pulled up. It's gymleaderchallenge.com. It's very, very good resource in learning the cards and just like the format itself and what it is. So Gym Leader Challenge format is essentially what you think of when you think of Gym Leader. It is a monotype challenge. So if you decide that you're going to play a water deck, which is basically what I play usually, you can only use water Pokemon in that deck. It is a non-rule box, no ace spec like kind of format. So a lot of the big basic, type cards that we talk about and stuff like that, it is pure single prize Pokemon focused format. But that's not all that it's focused on because it is also a singleton format. Now, Sean, you've played Commander in Magic the Gathering. For anyone who doesn't know, what does singleton mean?
Singleton means that you can only have one of any given card in your deck. So,
hmm
except for basic energy, you can
Yeah,
have
yeah.
as many basic energy as you want. But say you want, you think, oh, this is a really good Charizard. You can have more than one Charizard, but you can only have one of any type of Charizard. So, they've printed tons of them. So you could put 4 different Charizards in your deck, most
No,
likely.
no, no,
No.
no, no, no. You can only have one of each card with the same name per deck.
Oh, so this is very, very
It's right there on that first
okay.
bullet point.
Sorry, with the same name. I was just assuming that the name. Matt, see, this is
No, no, no. It's
I'm
cool. You
learning
haven't
too.
played you haven't played the format. I have. That's why.
Okay,
That's
so
why.
it's the same
Yeah,
name,
yeah,
not the same
yeah,
not the same code at the bottom.
yeah.
Not the
So
same printing.
if in my water deck I want to have Baxcalibur, there's only one Baxcalibur that I can use, right?
Okay.
And I can only have one of them in my deck. So it provides some pretty interesting strategies, in my opinion, about like building your deck. There's a lot of cards because there's only a one of for you. There's a lot of cards that don't see any shine at all. That's like, wow, that's crazy. And also, there's just a heavy set in general. The format is consistent, or consisted of black and white cards on. So it's like 2000, what is it, 2012, 2013,
Yep.
to the present that we have now with Paradox Rift. So,
Is that the same format I believe is expanded also? Like meaning like the same time period?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, it's the same time period as expanded.
Okay. So yeah, I mean if you're a newer player, including myself and Jake, new-ish relative, right? 2019 for
Hmm.
us. Yeah, there'll be lots of cards here that you probably have never seen or played with. And to be frank, a lot of cards that people even that played back then didn't see or play with
Hmm.
much. Because, yeah, cards can shine that weren't really ever designed to work well in standard. So,
Like, I know that Ball Guy is
mm,
a staple in Gym Leader Challenge, which is awesome because we loved Ball Guy here on
yeah.
this podcast when it got announced, and it didn't really have any shine in the standard format.
So, yeah, that's all the rules. There is a ban list that's specific to this that you can find.
Hmm.
I can quickly pull it up, but like, it's
My
really like
poor Rangaroo.
right, exactly. Like there are cards there that either circumvent the spirit of the format. Something that I saw was like Pokemon Research Lab, so, sort of circumvented the spirit of the format because it
Hmm.
gave you multiple options to like evolve from things too quickly. Um, Other ones like the Oranguru, Chip Chip Ice Axe, Hiker, that's like a whole combo. And so Oranguru allowing you to like reuse cards on sort of an infinite loop is just kind of a no-no in this format.
Bring him back.
Yeah. So yeah, like there's a small ban list of what is this, 7 cards total. So yeah,
Hmm.
if you're
And
building a deck.
cards have also gone off of the ban list. So like Hex Maniac is a really good example.
Mhm.
That card, which I think got banned in standard and expanded as well. Maybe not standard, but definitely expanded. Also got banned in GLC, but now it's unbanned, so you can play it. And I think a lot of decks actually do play it.
So that's the overview of the rules.
Hmm.
But when you think about it, like, okay, well, there's a lot of cards to think of. The reality is, like any format, there are going to be some cards that are just good anywhere in most decks, and most decks are going to want to play them, and those are the staples. The one thing I will say, being a commander player, and the reason that you have these staples, especially in a singleton format, the one thing that you're going to be looking for is called redundancy, right?
Hmm.
So when you think about a normal game of Pokemon, for the Pokeballs you play, you're just going to pick the best ones and put 4 of each of those probably into your deck for a total of 8 to 12 cards. So 3 different cards are going to make up 12 slots in your deck. But when you can only do one of each, you have to get a little bit creative, but you might still need those 10 or 12 Pokemon search options in your deck. So what you do is you scroll through, and the same goes for supporters, right? For draw supporters, like what are the best draw supporters, and let's just get one of each of those. For energy acceleration in certain decks, like let's get one of each of those. So Commander and Magic is very similar. You might pick cards. You're going to pick a bunch of cards that have similar effects or the same effect that are different names, just because that effect is important to getting consistency. So consistency is important. So the supporters you'll see will be thematic in the thing that they do matters, even if they are not the best version of that thing that they do.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, from a supporter standpoint, the one thing I'll call out that is maybe a little bit surprising to people is a few of the tag team supporters are huge in Gym Leader Challenge. So you've got Tate
Hmm.
and Liza, Guzma and Hala. I think those, and then Cynthia and Caitlin. Those are the
Cynthia and
three.
Caitlin is definitely one.
Yep. Those are the three all stars
Hmm.
in this format in terms of, a lot of supporters. And the reason being, there's another card that you can play in Tag Call that can go pull two of those supporters, I believe. Is it one or two? I think it's two, right?
Well, you can
Two.
get up to 2 tag team cards.
Right. And since these cards are technically tag team cards, you have a supporter search card that can go get two of the supporters from your deck. And those supporters do really good things. So, like,
Mhm.
that's one of those things where, like, yeah, when tag teams were around, Tag Call was a decent card in some decks. But in this format, they're just absolutely amazing because you can directly search them out of your deck with one card.
If you play enough of them.
Yes.
Also, Tate and Liza is not a tag team.
Oh, it's Tate Lance. I was just
No,
reading
it's
the
it's
ands.
from Celestial
Okay,
Storm.
fine. Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember.
yeah,
I
yeah.
remember that one now.
But
Yeah,
Tate and Liza is a really good card that people play all the time in GLC. So you're not wrong in that aspect.
yeah. But outside of that, I think the other thing that I keep hearing a lot of people say is you'll have the main supporter cards, right? You'll have your
Mhm.
researches, you'll have your Ionos and your Ns and your Marnies and just anything that gives you a decent amount of draw power is whatchamacallit. So you got research is what's the other one? The one that
So
research was based off of.
So
Sycamore?
those
Or
are
did those get
combined to the
eroded down?
same one.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, those are combined into the same one. Professor's Research and like Juniper,
Sycamore.
Sycamore, Professor Juniper, Sycamore. The specific name's different than Professor's Research, but that and Boss's Orders. Boss's Orders is combined with Lysander
Hmm.
from the Black and White era to be one card essentially, because that's effectively what they are. It's the same effect. It's just a different name, and the idea of those cards creations, the professor's research and the boss's orders, was to mirror those good effects, just be something that's long lasting in the standard format. So
So
yeah, they
that's
have combined those.
So that's, I guess, another rule to know is you
Hmm.
can't play Research and Juniper and Sycamore in a deck. It's just
Sadly
one.
not.
So pick your favorite
Hmm.
art and go with that.
Hmm.
um, but yeah, Jake, anything else on the supporter front that surprised you when you got into the game?
I think it's just really, really cool, like overall. And one of my favorite things about GLC 2 is blinging out the supporters, right?
Hmm.
Because you're only buying one supporter for each. And as someone who loves full art supporters, like the only one that really, really hurt me was getting the Plasma Colress.
Hmm.
Do you know that card?
No, I don't.
So Colress effectively says draw card. So you shuffle your hand into your deck, and then you draw cards based on the amount of bench Pokemon that both you and your opponent have. So you can draw up to 10 cards. It was a really, really good card back when it was in standard, and it's a really, really good card in expanded, but it's also a really, really good card in GLC. Because GLC, as you can imagine, being a singleton format and being one ofs of each card, the game is usually a little bit slower in aspects. So people definitely have a full board similar to how they do in the standard format right now.
Yeah. I think the one that surprised me is I believe it's Peonia.
Hmm.
And the same will go for I think Town Map finds its way into certain decks as well. Is that true?
Oh yeah, I play
Yeah.
Town Map. I
So
play Town Map.
so Peonia, if I'm correct, and I think maybe Gladion does this as well. But like
Mm,
cards, or
they're a
what's the other
little
one? Is
different.
it? Well, I mean, but they
So,
get things out of your prizes, right?
yes, yeah,
Yeah. So cards
but
like those or Town Map,
mhm.
getting things out
So,
of your prizes because it's a singleton format is important.
yeah, and there's different options too. Like if you don't want to play Gladion, because that's just looking at one prize card, right?
Mm,
And like Peonia, for example, is grabbing 3 random prize cards and then re-putting them back in. I think I do this. I personally play Hisuian Heavy Ball in
to
mine
look at
because
them all.
more often than not, the prize card that you need is a Pokemon.
Mm,
So using Hisuian Heavy Ball can really help you out in terms of grabbing prizes right away. So there's like it's interesting that there's these effects, but we've evolved so much in the Pokemon trading card game, in my opinion, that there's like a ton of different effects that are similar for a lot of cards. I think you kind of touched on that earlier.
yeah. In terms of the other stuff, like there's a ton of different items, but
Hmm.
as I was saying about redundancy, balls like Pokemon Search through ball card effects or something similar is huge. So
Hmm.
you'll have your Nest Ball, your Quick Ball, your Ultra Ball, your whatever, your Level Ball, but
Basically, every card that's been good
it
since
says
like
ball.
2012, you
Yeah,
know.
but you'll also play like things like Acrobike. You'll play what's the new one? Not the Acrobike, but it's the one that's came out
Uh,
today.
Trekking shoes.
Trekking. You might play trekking shoes. You might even play. Does anybody play Judge Whistle or Judge Call or whatever?
No, I don't really think so. Although I don't think it's a terrible idea.
Because it's
Um,
basically
but
draw
it
one.
Well, it's effectively the same whatchamacallit, conversation as like when it was in standard
Yeah.
in the Sun and Moon format of like, is this card good? Is it not good? I guess if you need to like more aggressively draw, but I don't I don't think people usually play Judge
you
Whistle.
you maybe don't need it as badly because you have a lot
Yeah.
of options.
Because
But
you do have to fit a lot. I know like
yeah.
when I was putting my water deck together before, I mean this was like NAIC, right? So there's Paradox Rift and stuff that I've released since then. Um I know that for my water deck, like making cuts was a little difficult sometimes because there were so many cards that you wanted to put in because you can only have a single card of each, you know?
I think it's something that is also important to remember with this is we're going through some of the staples right now, but each
Mm-hmm.
archetype also has its own little suite of staples, right? So if you're playing a water deck, you might want to play Dive Ball as one of your ball
Mm-hmm.
cards because it's like four
You
like water
do.
Pokemon.
You do. Trust.
Yeah, if you're playing a fire deck, you're probably playing Fire Crystal to recover
Mm-hmm.
fire energy. So there's like, and that's what makes it every deck has their own unique suite of options too. And I know we have that today, like, oh, Fusion Strike decks play this, and then, but it's really cool to see like over the years, you get a good sense of like an entire archetype's theme in some ways when you play this
Mm-hmm.
format, which I thought was cool.
And there's a lot of different ways to play each archetype as well. So like um in Psychic, for example, and we'll go over like a list as well, but like there's a couple different ways to play Psychic, like super heavy spread or just like, beat 'ems kind of deal. So it's really interesting the different ideas that you can do and the different builds of the decks that you can see in the format.
I mean, speaking of that, why don't we? I think the supporters and the trainers are the things that are the most common. Like the other stuff, there's
Mhm.
smaller lists. So please go to the website, Gym Leader Challenge. I think it's
GymLeaderChallenge.com.
gymleaderchallenge.com. Yeah, go
Hmm.
there, do some research if you're looking to build decks. There's lots of great resources. I'll also say that Omnipoke is doing a great series where he goes through each archetype right now.
Hmm.
So check out Omnipoke's
We love
Joe's
Joe.
YouTube. Yeah, check out
We love
Joe's
Jack
YouTube
and Joe.
channel.
Hmm.
And that's how I also did a quick, tutorial for this pod. So
Is that why you
basically,
messaged me? Did you watch one of their videos?
well,
And
no,
you,
I
because
just
Sean had messaged me. It was like, can we talk about GLC?
well, I just know that like, I knew that we needed to do it for a long time, and it just popped up in my feed on YouTube, and I was like, okay, let's. So I actually there's certain typings that Joe hasn't covered yet in his
Hmm.
like breakdown, so I don't actually know, but um, but Jake, let's I'm gonna pull up a water deck. It's just gonna be the
Hmm.
first one on the list here that got first. I'm sure your deck might be slightly different. You can go a bunch of different ways with this, but this should give people a sense of like, you know, what the format kind of feels like, and for water at least, like, oh, this is what might be strong in a water deck.
Hmm. So water having tons of accelerant type Pokemon. This person in this list using specifically Frostmoth. Um, I think in my deck I had a combination of Baxcalibur and Frostmoth, but
Okay.
utilizing those accelerants to have this big beat 'em Pokemon, Wailord. Sean, did you ever think of Wailord when it was printed in Silver Tempest?
no. It's
It
just
is
like,
so good in GLC. The whale is huge. I will die by this whale. Takes 30 less damage from attacks because of its ability. 200 HP Pokemon, which is big in the GLC format. And for 3 water energies and a colorless energy, which is pretty easy when you have Baxcalibur or Frostmoth or some sort of accelerant. If the Pokemon has special energy attacks, it does 240 damage.
oh my
120
gosh.
base, 240 in total. And you play definitely a couple special energies like the reversal energy
Yep.
is a good one in here. Counter energy is a good one. Recycle energy. And then also splash energy, a card that was printed back in Breakpoint in the X and Y era. Um, Pokemon's knocked out, put it back in your hand.
Oh my, that's amazing in
Hmm.
this. So,
So this one's a little bit different because you're also playing like Turbo Energized TM, the evolution, stuff like that. But
yep.
as you know, you kind of mentioned, like you're definitely playing dive ball. There's a ton of ball search. Like there's level ball, nest ball, quick ball in here, timer ball, ultra ball, and just really, really good cards in general overall. Plays the Shady Dealings engine,
Yeah. So
our
if you want to
favorite.
relive the glory days of shady dealings, then there you go. Play water.
Hmm.
Um,
And so, yeah, I mean that's pretty much water. You have a couple different attackers as well that you can like switch around between, but um this is my favorite personally. This
do,
is the one that I built.
do you know what I find surprising about this? And this may just be this list, and maybe there's
Hmm.
different lists, but I look at this list and I'm like, most of the supporters, and even like items in this list, some of them are reprints. But most of the supporters in this list are fairly recent.
Hmm.
The only ones that seem a little older are like before our time, I'll say, which we haven't been playing that long. Um, Colress, N.
Hmm.
That's it. Those are the only two that I never personally played in a standard format.
Out of like with quick math for anyone who can't see visually, I think there's like 12 or 13 supporters in there,
15.
maybe a little
15.
bit more. 15 supporters in there, and 2 of them were kind of before our time. Pretty much
Yeah.
3 of them if you count Acerola.
Oh, I
And
played Acerola. I love
oh,
that
you
card.
played Acerola?
Oh
I was gonna
yeah.
say I played Acerola and expanded. I never played with it in standard.
That card is
Um,
broken.
but anyways, so yeah, I mean, a lot of the cards are decently new. There's also like some, most of the Pokemon are new because Pokemon are constantly getting like more HP
yeah.
and things like that. So a lot of the, but there's still like appearances of good Pokemon like Octillery, the Octillery from 2018 Worlds, that just draws cards, has until you have 5 cards in your hand, just really, really good. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's always like little peaks of these like old cards, but for the most part, a lot of these decks are new.
And like Jake was saying, like we're not going to go through a deck of every type, but what you
Mhm.
sort of see here is like the Pokemon are going to do a lot of heavy lifting in terms of the strategy of the deck, typically. So most decks, most themes, you're going to look for a few things in your Pokemon. So whatever you end up building, even if it's just finding the things cards you already have, maybe you want some probably like you got to figure out your energy acceleration. And in a singleton format, the most consistent way to do that usually is with the Pokemon because the Pokemon stay on the field, right? It's
Mhm.
as long as they don't get knocked out, your Pokemon can do the thing turn after turn. So for water, it's Frostmoth, but for other decks, it's maybe like in fire, there's a Charizard that makes your energy count for 2. That's kind of acceleration if you think about it.
Grass has one too in
Yep.
a Venusaur.
Yeah, Venusaur. You also have Rillaboom in grass.
Hmm.
So, they'll be different usually for every archetype. But the other thing is you need draw power. So, yes, there are great supporters that can draw you cards, but, maybe you don't want to discard your whole hand to draw 7. Maybe you got some good stuff in there you need to hold on to. Well, you'll have Octillery in some, in colorless, you have so many options. You got Chinchino, you got Bibarel, you got whatever. Um, and then you have your, like, attackers. So, really And that's, I think, where, to your point, the older cards are going to shine is less in the attacking space and more so in the support space, whether that's energy acceleration, drawing you cards, or disrupting your opponent. That's
Hmm.
usually where the older cards are going to shine, because those abilities are just, if it's a good ability, it doesn't really matter when it was printed. You know, draw up to 5, like that's like almost as good as Genesect right there.
Yeah,
So I'm like,
it's
yeah, that's
it's
pretty good.
Octillery goes crazy. I love
Um,
that guy.
so yeah, that's water. Is there a type that we should look at next, Jake? Is there a type that
I
you think
think
is interesting?
I think grass we should look at mostly because grass was kind of like at least like in my opinion, one of the most dominant decks of all time. Um, Pretty popular among a lot of people. So grass, one of those, like I mentioned and Sean did, there's energy accelerants in the format with Rillaboom accelerating energy, also the Venusaur doubling your energy from the Detective. Is it the Detective Pikachu set? No, it's from Shining Legends. It looks like a Detective Pikachu
It
kind of
does.
card, but this one essentially just turbos a lot of your energies to these various Pokemon on the field that just constantly boost power. So this list is a little bit different, just because time has evolved since my time playing at NAIC. But you've got Shining Genesect, right? Another Shining Legends card. This one, not necessarily a support Pokemon, pretty much the attacker. 3 energies, 50 plus 20 more damage for grass energy attached to this Pokemon. If you have 3 energies attached to the Shining Genesect, that's 110 damage. Pretty good in this format, but with the Venusaur, that's technically 6 energies. So 6 energies is 170 damage overall. So you've got that. You've got the Zarude as well from Chilling Reign that effectively does the same effect, just like a little bit more damage. And then you've got other kind of Pokemon in there as well. This one mostly about the like stage twos. This one's pretty big on stage twos and evolutions with one, two, three, four, five different like evolution lines in there to utilize with a Torterra, right? An Evo Press. But the Grotle is even better because the Grotle allows you to search for grass Pokemon once per turn. So it's just really interesting the different variety of the effects of some cards because like Torterra, when you have an evolution deck, is really good as an attacker, but Grotle as a support Pokemon is awesome for finding your consistency and evolving these Pokemon and things like that. So yeah, just basically the energy accelerant deck and just like whack-a-mole deck. Another kind of like I talked about, Wailord is kind of like the beat stick. Um,
Yep.
but grass is, in my opinion, the original beat stick. But there's one card that is not on there, Sean, that I
Oh,
actually just messaged you in Discord
okay.
that I was kind of surprised that it wasn't there. But this one is where sometimes the format can get a little bit tricky. Um, there's a Roserade from Dragons Exalted. It's a pretty good GLC card in grass, and if you can see on TCG Player, it is like a $20 card.
Oh my gosh.
For a card that was printed way back in 2012. It's just like when you evolve, you grab any card, one of any card. So really, really good effect, really good in these decks, especially as a 90 HP Pokemon. But obviously, if you don't own it, right, there are other substitutes that you can use, like this Shinotic that they've got in their list, or putting in the Buzzwole, or maybe just looking for other cards specifically that are more search options that you want to include in your deck.
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, those are two of the decks. I would also say, like, go to Play Limitless.
Mhm.
You can also just like go look through all the decks. Now, there aren't a lot of like really large size tournaments, so you're not going to find anything. Oh, this one like a 500-person event or anything like that. So it
A
is
lot
gonna.
of the beauty of GLC is it's mostly preferred in person. So like I sent you that picture, Sean,
Yeah.
Full Group Games has like a challenge that they do for the entire year, or the entire season, where like you can win one with every type, right? And the first person to win with every single type is the Gym Leader Challenge champion, right? And you see like a variety of types in there if you're looking at the screen. Like I see colorless is one that people have won, dark, grass, lightning, water, fighting, fire, metal. I think I already said psychic, but like there's a variety in the format, and it's really, really cool as well just to see like, yeah, some decks are consistent, right? And are more consistent than others, but to see like, I mean, it's just really, really cool. Like a single type format, I feel like anything's got a shot
Yeah.
for the most part.
I will say my locals, a few people from my locals too want to start up a GLC,
Hmm.
you know, sort of group. So I'll probably be getting into it. I'll probably be building a deck. I need to do more research, but
Water.
water's the way to go. I will say
That's my
this.
way, at least.
One thing I did notice, which I don't know if this matters in GLC as much,
Hmm.
but some archetypes, while they have a lot of cards over their history and they can be very good because of that, like grass, for instance, right? Grass just has tons of support from over the years, but grass Pokemon are, I believe, almost always, if not always, weak to fire, right?
Hmm.
So certain typings, because of the way that Pokemon has bunched together the video game typings into the TCG, certain typings always have a singular weakness, but other typings might have more coverage. So like Psychic, for example, over the years
Hmm.
has had like lots of weird coverages, right? Like some Psychic Pokemon are weak to Metal, some Psychic Pokemon are weak to Dark, some Psychic Pokemon are weak to Psychic. I think Water is another interesting example of, you'd think, oh, Water, they're usually weak to Lightning. Some Water are weak to Grass, some Water are weak to Metal because they're Ice type, right?
Hmm.
And I do wonder, like, that's kind of interesting. It puts certain archetypes at a natural disadvantage. Like fire is almost always weak to just water. And so like if you
But
hit
it's also like somewhat of an advantage because yeah, when you hit like a weakness matchup, like it can feel very, very swayed. But like if it's a little different than like Tord Reckless Lost Pile, right? Where he's playing
yeah.
dark Pokemon, lightning Pokemon, and like water Pokemon as well. So there's like a bunch of different coverages in a single deck, whereas like in GLC, you only have to worry about one type.
That's true. That's true. I guess if you have a bunch of types, but it is interesting. It was just a thought. I was like, oh, that does actually,
Hmm.
it makes certain, I don't know, it just makes for like you thinking a little bit more about like typing and how Pokemon has evolved typing over time. Because, if you probably are going to play some cards where back in the day there wasn't, like they bunch typings differently, so this card will have a weakness that it doesn't have today. I don't know. It's just it's a cool stroll through Pokemon history too, I think, in Gym Leader Challenge, which is fun.
It's definitely a fun one. I encourage playing it real casual. If you go to like a regional or something, I think pretty much almost all the regionals have some sort of like side event. At least like NAIC
Yeah.
constantly does every year. Has a side event of GLC that's a lot of fun. I think like when I did it at NAIC, there was over like 300 players
Oh wow, that's
in the
crazy.
GLC event. So, I mean, there's a lot of people that love playing it, especially at those major events. So, if you don't make day two or, whatever, or you just want to hang out, maybe as a spectator, like it's a really cool option to go play.
Yeah. Or if you end up going to Hawaii for Worlds and you didn't qualify, that you can bring a few Gym Leader Challenge decks and just have a blast. So
Hmm.
yeah.
I I think we talked about it on the pod about NAIC. I also played like I played Gym Leader Challenge and went like 3-1 or something like that, and then played 2010
Yeah.
format and got top eight.
Yeah, you borrowed a deck, I think you said, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like 5 minutes before the event, my friend Edge, TCG, let
Yeah.
me borrow a 2010 deck, told me a little bit about it, and then I top eighted.
That's amazing.
That was fun.
But yeah,
Really ton of fun.
that's going to be the pod for us. So let us know what you think about Gym Leader Challenge. If you want us to keep going on it. Like I think we plan to at this point. I don't know how often, but I think
We'll
it's a
keep talking
format
about
that
it every once in a while.
yeah, I think it's a format that deserves more coverage from us. I'll say that at least. So yeah.
It's a fun, non-official Pokemon format, so no championship points, but I do think it's worth it to get into play and just have a good time, because it's just refreshing sometimes to not play standard, I'll say. Sometimes it's just a little more fun to play a little bit of GLC every once in a while. But anyways, thank you so much for listening to the Metapod Podcast, the Pokemon podcast that revolves around the evolving meta. I'm Jake, that's Sean. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you next week.